Listen, we're about to have some fun because, folks, I need to tell you that the news cycle in rugby league comes together in strange ways some days. So the NRL 360 crew were sitting in a production meeting this morning around 11 a.m. when one of our digital journos busted through the double doors and told us that he just got a tip from another one of our digital journos that 3 members of the West Tigers, Michael Maguire, Adam Hardigan, that's their GM of football, and their CEO Justin Pascoe, had just been spotted on a plane going from Sydney to Brisbane. Over to you, James Super.
Sprung, Ben. The West Tigers have been caught red-handed, as you just touched on. They were on the plane. The reason they were on the plane is because they've been doing some backroom negotiating and they had manoeuvred to get permission to speak to Tevita Pangai Jr. and also Jamayne Isaako about potentially joining the West Tigers next year. You don't put your 3 top dogs on the plane on a hit-and-run mission to Brisbane to sign a park player. So that was what was going on. They've met today. They'll arrive back in Sydney later on this evening, and we'll wait and see whether the Tigers can somehow negotiate for those 2 players to be at Concord next year.
So there's a couple of parts to this, right? One, that clearly the Broncos have had a conversation with both Isaako and Pangai about them being allowed to have a look around, which means the Broncos are looking for money on their cap. And once the money arrives, if both Isaako and Pangai agree to head to the joint venture, the Broncos have to start looking around. And you have some intel on where they might be looking.
Well, obviously it's around that Nico Hines is someone they're considering, but also Josh Hodgson from Canberra. It's all backroom dealings at the moment, Ben. This is all stuff that, to be fair, they don't want out. Okay, neither club wants out. They want to be further down the road before it becomes public. It's still early enough that it could all fall over very quickly, just be smothered over very quickly. But the fact is, this is all part of the backroom negotiations and the cattle trade that we see between clubs. The conversations are opened, they're shut down, they progress. Lot to happen, but it's fascinating how clubs are already so active to rebuild their roster for next season.
It's moving quickly though, isn't it? I mean, only a couple of weeks ago I think you sat here and said that Jake Turpin was the future at number 9 for the Broncos. They signed Adam Reynolds last week and now Josh Hodgson could be heading there. Interested that the Tigers are up there talking to a player like Tevita Pangai. I think that we all know that the Tigers have a lot of strike and can be quite a skillful team, but it feels like what they're missing is a leader in that team and some more discipline and consistency. We know that Tevita can be skillful and be such a great player. Maybe he hasn't unlocked that at Brisbane, but is Madge going to be able to get that?
Well, that's the thing, right? Is for me right now, the Tigers should be in the market for more grind, not more strike.
I'd be on a plane to Melbourne trying to get Dal Finucane, someone who sets the standard at your club and who drives the standards at your club, not someone who's probably damaged from a couple of really awful years at the Broncos.
Yeah, don't disagree with that for a second, Lara. However, I would point out, I think the Tigers, try to get as many smart football people overhauling and having eyes on the roster at all times, and they've identified that they've got a lack of second phase play when they've got the football in terms of strike power. So Tevita Pangai is second in terms of offloads in the NRL. Christian Welch has got 28 over the course of this season. Pangai's only 1 behind. So I actually think he's been playing better football this season. He's been going that well that he was on the New South Wales State of Origin radar because they're struggling in terms of depth for back row. The fact that the Broncos got touched up the way they did last week has probably put the pen through his name, but I think Tevita's been going okay this year.
Josh Hodgson at the Broncos, playing in dummy half while Adam Reynolds is at first receiver. That'd make you happy as a Broncos fan?
Yeah, look, to Lara's point, they did commit to Jake Turpin, a month ago?
Yeah.
But the fact is, Kevy's also on record to say that they need to really boost up that spine. That's clearly been the failing of the Broncos this season and last season. They continue to shuffle the deck chairs, to be honest.
Well, when you think about it, Nico Hines, Josh Hodgson, Adam Reynolds.
Well, you learn those 3.
Yeah.
Like that, suddenly,
a confident team.
You look at the forward pack that the Broncos got, the outside backs they got, then you put those 3 players in the spine, and they may, to the point, they may be looking at someone like Isaako go, who sees himself as a fullback, but if you can trade him out, let him go to the Tigers, bring in Nico Hines, play fullback, frees up cap room. It all starts to take place, and I tell you what, the Broncos are a much more dangerous looking side next season if you could have those three in your spine.
Hodgson, Reynolds, Staggs at 6,
and
Hines at 1. I mean, that's easily a final spine, probably a top 4 spine.
The stumbling block is their salary cap for next year. Yes, they've signed Reynolds. Yes, they've got Staggs done and dusted, but they're not flush with folding. They're not flush with funds to just go into the marketplace and be able to splash cash. That's why they're doing this. That's why they're allowing the West Tigers to fly up to meet with these couple of big name players. Pangai's on well over 600,000. I think Isaako's on about $500,000. So if they can
strike that logic and look elsewhere.
Correct.
Who's on significant money.
If they can strike the right price around all of that, they can potentially free up about $1.4 million to spend.
Corey Oates has been dropped this week by Kevy, so I dare say if Corey Oates was to go looking for another club, they wouldn't stand in his way. And of course, they get Anthony Milford's $1 million come back into the cap. So good to see that the Broncos are active, so too the West Tigers.